What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. Lego just released their latest wave of Star Wars diorama sets, and they all have the same big problem. They're Imperial themed.
Are we leaving or what? Ow.
And you guys know me, I have a slight problem where pretty much everything I buy, I turn into prequel themed stuff. Even non-Lego Star Wars sets aren't safe. And while I don't have any of these new sets in hand to transform, that didn't stop me from thinking about what we could have gotten. And today, I'm challenging myself to build 3 prequel-themed dioramas. To show you some prequel-themed options I would love to see Lego make. In the spirit of the dioramas line, I'm going to try and keep these relatively similar to the piece counts and styles of the actual sets. So I won't be going full mock mode with tons of detail. But I do have some pretty cool builds and minifigs to cook up for you all, so don't forget to execute Order 66 on that like button, and let's get building. I figured I couldn't make a wave of prequel dioramas without including the iconic Anakin and Padme sand dialogue on Naboo.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and it gets everywhere.
What did he say?
Just kidding. First up is a classic Battle of Geonosis build. I figured what better terrain-based build to do than the first large-scale battle of the Clone Wars. I noticed Lego likes to get a little fancy with their frame, so I'm adding a step of black tile above the frame to raise up the mock from the base a little and add some more detail to the frame, because nothing says classy like a little black step. Next, I need to lay out the filler brick and create the shape of the battlefield. Even though Geonosis is relatively flat, I want to include a small valley or natural trench on one side. This will add more pieces to the piece count, but it will help the whole thing look less flat and boring. And I'm sure Lego would have no problem just raising the price of this one if the piece count is too high. Once I have the filler parts at the right height and the trench laid out, I'm going to start building it first just to make sure I have enough room for it and that none of the filler brick will end up being exposed. I love creating little valleys and trenches, or whatever you want to call these, starting out with a square rectangle of a hole and then using plates, tiles, and wedge plates to create curving or rounded terrain inside and around it is just very satisfying. That was definitely the only challenging part of the build. The rest will be just extending the shape of the trench on the smaller side and then slapping down some plate on the flat side. I don't want this larger side to look too boring, so I'm going to add another row of wedge plate. This layered technique with wedge plate works really well on Geonosis since it's a flat, rocky desert. You gotta have a little medium nougat in a Geonosis mock too, so I'll put a little patch off to one side. I'm going to add some iconic Geonosian spires, and I already have some built on another mock, so I'm just going to quickly pop into the Lego room and snag those. I'm going to add a ring of smaller ones at the base of this big guy like a little family. After that, all I need to do is patch up a couple places and it's minifig time. Since most of this mock is just flat terrain, I thought a small command post would be nice. Lego could even reuse the one that came in the clone pack. And then of course you need some droids, and it's not a Geonosis mock without the cannon fodder of an alien that is the Geonosian. I'm really happy with how this mock turned out. It's really simple but has a good story and can be easily modified to make new scenes with stuff from your own collection. I don't know about you guys, but a Geonosis diorama would be a must-buy for me. Think of the minifig potential we could get with this one. Swap out any of the clones for a Jedi, swap in a B2 battle droid, add a clone commander. Geonosis has all different kinds of goodies for us to enjoy. Plus, I feel like this battle is probably one of the most recognizable of the prequel era, so this set would even appeal to the non-prequel heads such as myself and the more casual Star Wars fans. Another thing that I think would be cool is if Lego built these in a way that they could connect together, so you could buy multiple and create an even larger scene. One thing I liked about the previous line of dioramas was the set diversity, meaning we got an outdoor terrain build, one urban building build, and one micro build. I just like how each of these sets was a different building experience and you got a variety of different pieces and minifigs. For some reason, as soon as I started planning this video, Chancellor Palpatine's office popped into my head as a potential diorama, and I thought,
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
This could be like the prequel version of the Emperor's throne room that Lego just released. I feel like this is another iconic location of the prequels. A lot of scenes take place here.
I am the Senate.
So that would check the recognizability box for Lego, since I think that's one of the main reasons they've been doing so many Imperial dioramas. This may seem like a lot of brick I'm throwing at this mock already, but this is kind of like the initial prototype design, and those always use up the most parts. If I had more time, I could probably do it with less, which is what Lego would do. His office is pretty big, so I'm only gonna do the big window and everything in front of it up to the bottom of the steps. Our boy Palpy likes to stay drippy, and his office is no different, complete with exotic Sith replicas and dark red carpet. So at the foot of the stairs, I'm gonna add red plate and tile and have it run up along the sides of the steps. I'm gonna add some 1x1 plates in with the tile on the steps so that we can have more options for placing minifigs. Plus, I just like the looks of exposed studs in a Lego build. It's a real vibe. The window is what I was the most unsure of. The frame is pretty simple, just a wall and some slopes, But what is going to be behind the window? The actual window looks out onto the beautiful Coruscant skyline, and after much convincing, I decided to attempt a mosaic build of said skyline. But first, I ran out of red tile, so I had to tile off the rest of the build with light bluish gray parts. And I did add a strip of dark red above the window, since I figured adding as much dark red as I could was a must. Now for the actual window seat. I didn't have any blue brick to represent the sky during the day, so this will be Coruscant at night. I'm sure someone could figure out a better way of doing this, but I wasn't too concerned with creating a masterpiece. I just needed something good enough that people would recognize it's a city in the background. I used a brick with a sticker on it and put the sticker facing the wrong way on accident. The accessories are going to be a chair for Palpatine, a Palpatine minifig obviously. Because I had no dark red brick for the walls, I'm adding these little pillar wall hanging looking things. I was real excited to add these Senate guards. They contrast with the red so nicely, and I added some dark blue cloaks. And of course, you can't forget the Lego Star Wars plaque on the front in case anyone was wondering what this is. This turned out to be such a sleeper build. I thought Geonosis was by far going to be my favorite of these builds, but man, this one is so cool. The window turned out better than I thought it would. Even that sticker fits right in and adds a little bit more detail to the building. Honestly, there isn't a thing I dislike about this build. I guess I could have made the steps one stud instead of two studs wide to have more room up by the desk for chairs and other minifigs, but that's about it. I even included the weird holo projector at the front of the stairs so Palpatine can watch his Saturday morning cartoons. With the two builds down, there is only one left, and it's also the micro build. You probably saw the green brick and felt a surge of panic. Not another Naboo mock from Coconut. Don't worry, this place is kind of the opposite of Naboo. I decided to go with the famous barbecue scene at Uncle Owen's. I'm kidding, that's not even in the prequels, but I am building on Tatooine. Since this was a micro build, I knew it would need to be a large, iconic scene with vehicles and lots of stuff going on. And the one and only Scott Davis is actually partially responsible for this one because a while ago, he suggested a microscale pod racing scene. So I had that wandering around in the back of my mind as I was planning this video. This will be the starting point of the race with the cliff wall on one side and the stands and Jabba's big tower on the other. The nice thing about microscale is it's pretty simple to build, so you don't have to worry about adding the same level of detail as the other dioramas to make it look cool. And I'm also going to add the arch that all the pod racers drive through, since if I'm going to build part of the racetrack, I might as well include the start and finish line. Once my meager supply of slopes is depleted, it's time to add the spectators, who will just be a combination of various colors and shapes of studs. All of these are going to contrast so nicely with the tan base of the build. Now for the main attraction, the pod racers. I'll only be able to include a few, so I made sure to include the more recognizable ones like Sebulba and Anakin's pod racers. I'm not a huge fan of the pod racing scene. In fact, I rarely make it that far when I watch Phantom Menace, but I know how popular it is, so I figured this would be another banger of a set for LEGO to cash out on. This is definitely the most colorful of the three, and I just really like the idea of microscale. It allows you to build and display a massive scene or place from the movies without taking up a lot of space or parts. I really like how I was able to capture the curved part of the stadium with the wedge plate, and the little Jabba setup is probably one of my favorite parts of the build. It just reminds me of a tiny little castle. Well, that's it for this video. Wait, not so fast. I have one more bonus diorama. Since you guys enjoyed the Delta Squad diorama challenge so much, I thought I would do something similar, but with the Bad Batch. Wrong. I would never. I'm sticking with the best commandos in the galaxy, Delta Squad, and making another diorama mock with them. But man, I am really feeling the lack of parts in my bins right now while trying to build this. I feel like I don't have any good parts in gray, and I had to keep taking apart and rebuilding this, trying to make it look good with the parts that I have. It was getting pretty bad towards the middle of the build, and I almost felt like scrapping this one because it looked like trash. But I stuck with it, and it started to look better when I decided to add an arch above the little alcove, because nothing takes a mock out of the dump like a good old arch. Because it's Coruscant, I wanted to have some fluorescent signs with Arabesh on them, just like what I did with my Coruscant mock. I also need a door to go in the alcove. Once the building is done, it's time to assemble everything and see if I can scrape together a decent build. I was going to use Fixer and Zev as the ones breaching the door, but I felt like Boss and Scorch would make a little bit more sense, so I swapped them in instead. Deep in the lower levels of Coruscant, Delta Squad is about to breach a backdoor into a crime lord's hideout. He's been stealing and selling Republic war machines to the Separatists, and it's time for Delta Squad to put that to an end. This is definitely not up to the level of the other builds, and I would not consider this set material. I'm really looking forward to when Coruscant is finished and taken apart, so I'll have my full arsenal of parts at my disposal once again. But this mock showcases one of my biggest draws to this diorama line, which is the minifigs. There is so much potential here for LEGO to be able to give us more obscure and lesser known figs without having to dedicate a whole wave of playsets or even a single playset to some obscure scene or era of Star Wars. Think about how cool Knights of the Old Republic dioramas would be. This video awakened a whole host of ideas for dioramas that LEGO could do. Honestly, might make this a new series moving forward, building dioramas from different eras, movies, and even the games in the Star Wars galaxy. Old Palp's office is definitely my favorite diorama I built today. It has the perfect amount of detail, a great minifig selection, and in my opinion, perfectly embodies what LEGO is trying to do with this series. Honestly, even though it was built with the parts needed for Coruscant, I don't know if I can bring myself to take it apart. It may have earned a permanent spot on the display shelves. Let me know in the comments which of these builds was your favorite, as well as which scenes you would have picked, and I will catch you in the next one, but until then, happy building.